Welcome back to the Chronicles of a Gooner, the Arsenal podcast, part of the 90 Min Football Network. And on today's episode, we're going to be hypothetically spending Arsenal's summer transfer budget.
I'm Martin Tyler, and you're listening to Harry Symeou.
Hello and welcome back to the Chronicles of a Gooner, the Arsenal podcast, part of the 90 Min Football Network. As ever, I'm your host, Harry Symeou, at a slightly different time of the day today, and I appreciate that catches people off guard and probably pisses a lot of people off, but it couldn't be helped today. I am delighted to be joined, though, by the brilliant Mike Stavrou, journalist, broadcaster, good friend as well. Mike, how are you doing, mate?
I was vibing to that new intro, mate.
Do you like it?
It's good stuff. Yeah, I like it. It's jazzy. I saw someone in the comments last time I was on saying, Harry, man, you need to change this this intro. So it looked like you listened to the people, gave them what they want.
They got to me, man. They got to me. Now, there was a good few comments sort of over the last few weeks about it, and it did need to change. I was just being lazy, and I'm not one of these people that, you know, in the past, I would have gone on Twitter and been like, who can make a video intro? Let me know how much it costs. Let's get this sorted. And I would have gone down that route. But I wanted to put a bit of love and care into it. And I wanted to put the clips together myself, which is why it took me ages to get my arse in gear. But it's done now. Still had complaints about this one, by the way.
Complaints about everything, mate. How was it? How did you feel letting go of Martin Tyler after all that time?
Well, Martin Tyler is still in this one. Just
is he?
Subtly. Yep. He's still in there. You weren't listening properly, Mike.
Oh, yeah. I'm gonna have to come on again tomorrow. I have to listen, just to listen to it, and I'll go.
I didn't want to part ways with that completely.
Yeah.
Like, obviously, I've got the file saved, but I didn't want to lose it. I felt like it was a key part of the show, and it
absolutely
was an immovable object, if you like. Big hello to everybody joining us in the live chat. Lots of you with us. Some of you asking if it's a pre-record. No, we are live. It's not a pre-record. We are live with you right now on YouTube. If you are listening via the audio platforms as well, hello to you guys. Make sure that if you are listening in particular via Apple Podcasts, that you do leave us a review. That really, really does help. And if you are joining us on YouTube, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you are new. Bit of a different show today. We've been thinking sort of what to do during the international break. I don't know about you, Mike, but I have found this last couple of weeks so difficult for content. What about you?
Yeah, no, same as a journalist and reporter. When there's not much going on, it's hard. I mean, to be fair, I think in the last sort of few months, it's been very hectic. Like all the stuff with all the fallout from the Ukraine-Russia war in terms of how that impacts on sport has been big. And then obviously it was the Chelsea stuff with Roman Abramovich and all of that. So it has been pretty hectic. So to have a bit of time where it's been a bit of a lull was all right for the first week, but going into the second week and you've sort of used up all of your pre-planned ideas, it's like, okay, all right, okay. And it's just like not seeing Arsenal play on the weekend is tough, because it's like, what on earth do I do? Like, I've got to spend time with my girlfriend now. Like, bloody hell. I'm usually trying to find any other excuse to get away. It's like, oh, sorry, Arsenal game's on at 3:00. That means I'll be busy from about 1 till 7 as I deal with the pre-match and all the post-match and all that. No, I'm joking, by the way. If she's listening, she's not, but
she's not.
This
is a safe space, Michael. This is a safe space.
Yeah. Watch it get clipped now. I'll get put on my Twitter.
I'm going to send it to her myself. No, but jokes aside, like I agree with you. It is nice to have that break every now and again because of how intense it can be. But it feels like this break is too long. Like a week would be sufficient for me. Instead, we end up with like a whole kind of week after we've played, before the internationals even start. Then we get the internationals at the weekend and start of that next week. And then we've got another basically week until it comes back. And so it does feel like it takes a little bit too long for me to come back around. And like you, I don't really want to be dealing with screaming kids, and I don't really want to be in the house watching awful television. So yeah, I'm glad that we're getting closer to the return of football. But as I said, different show today. There's been a lot of transfer rumors doing the rounds during this international break, as you'd expect. You know, as you say, you know, people struggling for ideas. it feels like a good opportunity, doesn't it, for reporters to kind of dig a little deeper into certain stories and then put them out into the public domain. I'm always cautious and wary of falling for stories that emerge during international breaks because they feel like stories of convenience rather than substance. And I've been very clear on that on the press review shows that we've been doing on a daily basis. But I thought it'd be an interesting time just because we're kind of at a point in the season now where we know what Arsenal's goals are, we know what Arsenal's objectives are, and we're looking towards hopefully achieving those and then building again next season. And it could be a very different season for Arsenal because I think even if we were to miss out on the Champions League, I think it's pretty safe to say now that we'll be in Europe. So that does mean that we need a bigger squad. It does mean we need to rectify the fact that we've really trimmed the group down. And so it's a good time to kind of look ahead to that summer. Now that we know where the team is at and we know sort of where our strengths and weaknesses lay, we've had enough of the season to be able to establish that. I thought it'd be interesting to map out how we would spend Arsenal's summer transfer budget. Now, this is hypothetical. And the way we've done this for the benefit of our listeners is that we've gone by the player values on transfermarkt.co.uk and we've allocated ourselves a £120 million transfer budget. Now, looking at Arsenal's recent financial results, £120 million feels quite generous, given what we spent last summer as well. But we are going to recuperate a bit of money. The sale of Matteo Guendouzi is going to go through. We know that it's likely Ainsley Maitland-Niles leaves. There's a few other players as well who we're probably going to get some sort of change in for. Lucas Torreira is another one that we could pick up a bit of cash for. So I think 120 million was a fair sort of budget to set ourselves in, particularly if we get in the Champions League. We get that nice financial injection too. So we've left it open. You can spend this 120 million pounds in any way you see fit. You can buy one player with it. You can buy 10 players with it. It's completely up to you. That's how we're going to work this. And as I say, the valuations that we are using are from transfermarkt.co.uk. I know that they might not be the values or the prices that we would have to pay to get some of these players. So please don't bombard the comments saying, no way is he worth that much. We've gone by the values to make this fair and to make this something that we can work out. Yeah. Mike, I know you've been thinking long and hard about this. The YouTube compilations have been on for the last 24 hours. Who is it? Or first of all, talk us a little bit, talk us through what you think we need to do in terms of positions and what are the areas that first sprung to your mind.
Yeah, so number one priority, I think, is clear based on what we all want in January is striker. We don't know what the situation is going to be with Lacazette at the moment, but it kind of feels like him and Nketiah at this stage are probably going to go unless there's some sort of deal to be had with Lacazette more so on like a short-term contract, 1 year, 2 year. But at this current moment in time, obviously their contracts are running out at the end of the season. So if they both go, obviously we'll be left with Balogun when he comes back from his loan from Middlesbrough as our only striker, and he's not even established in the first team. So that is immediately a problem area, not just an area in terms of people, but in terms of quality. I think we need a massive upgrade. Lacazette has been great, and massive commendation to him on the shift he's put in and the role he's had to change to become more of like a false nine and someone who's brings others into play. But I think to evolve and to reach the next level, we need to get a player who first and foremost finds the back of the net on a regular basis, and then secondary can also do that link up role as well. So yeah, striker definitely. Centre midfield, I think if we have the budget and we don't spend too much on striker, I think needs an upgrade. I think Granit Xhaka, if we can't get someone who's an immediate upgrade on him, I think we get someone with a view to the future and someone who can sort of learn under the likes of Partey and Xhaka for who can develop in that role alongside Lokonga as well. If you got sort of two players around that 22, 21, 23 age or even younger, I think you can look towards the future and say, okay, these are going to be our secondary guys for Europe or for cup competitions in next season. And then eventually we can sort of build them up and grow them and they can be the long term. And then also winger as well. I think winger is another position. At the moment we're playing Saka and Martinelli more often than not. But if you look beyond that, I mean, you've got Nicolas Pepe, who's not been great this season, and then Smith Rowe, who can play on the left, but will he sort of move more centrally later in his career? So I think those for me are the three key positions.
So I agree with pretty much most of that. I think that the striker situation is one that absolutely needs rectifying, and I would argue that that would be the main priority for the season. For the summer, I beg your pardon. We go into that transfer window. I think the first port of call has to be to address that striking situation. I think you're right when it comes to the wingers. I think that's an area that maybe in some people's eyes is going under the radar a little bit. And the reason I think it's a bigger concern than maybe people are sort of wanting to admit at the moment is that I'm not sure that Nicolas Pepe is going to be at the club next season. And I think this is key here, because if we're going to be playing in Europe, and we know that Mikel Arteta likes his teams to play with a really intense style of football that requires those wide forwards, wingers, whatever you want to call them, to be really aggressive in the way they press, to be really aggressive in the way they close people down. And sometimes that can lead to a bit of burnout. I think at times we've seen it with Bukayo Saka. I look at him sometimes and I think, man, as important as you are to this side, you need a rest. And we don't really, I think, have the faith in Nicolas Pepe as a football club. I'm not talking about me specifically or anybody specifically. I mean, as a football club, in terms of the fan base and the manager, I don't think there's enough faith that Nicolas Pepe can come into that side and be as effective or even close to as effective as Bukayo Saka can be in his all-round game. Yes, he's a good goal scorer, Nicolas Pepe. His record at the club proves that. But does he give you enough of the other stuff? I'm not so sure. And I thought that when he came on against Aston Villa not too long ago, that was a sort of reminder to everybody that although he came on against Wolves and impacted the game and scored a really good goal and was key in setting up the winner ultimately, there's still a lot of shortcomings in his overall game, and there's still a lot of reasons why he is behind Bukayo Saka in the pecking order. I think that with him potentially leaving, I think your options on the right wing are limited then solely to Bukayo Saka. I think Mikel Arteta has made it clear that he wants to play left footers on the right and right footers on the left. You look at the left-hand side options, Martinelli, Emile Smith-Rowe at the moment, both of them like to cut inside onto their stronger right feet. And on the other side, the two options are Saka and Pepe. But if Pepe goes, and he's been making some noises over the last few days, understandably so, it's not to be critical of him, but he has made it clear that he will reassess his sort of options and his future when the summer comes along. If he does go, I think the winger position is one that we probably need to add a little bit more depth into. I think, like you, centre midfield is really, really important as well. I just feel like right now the drop-off from the level that Xhaka and Partey operate at in comparison to the next level, which is your Lokongas, it's a big drop-off at the moment. There's a hope, obviously, that Lokonga will develop and will get to that level and we'll get more game time, particularly if we're in Europe and we're in the early stages of, for example, the Europa League. It'll get more game time, that it'll develop and it'll get closer to that level. But I feel right now we're one injury away in midfield from being really, really short. So for me, that's really, really important. Just to address the defence quickly, centre-back, if Saliba does come back, I don't think is a priority. I think that you've got Ben White, you've got Gabriel, you've got Saliba, then in that case, you've got Rob Holding. But you've also got Takahiro Tomiyasu, who is a centre-back as well. That's what he's made his career as playing, and I think that he's seen by Mikel Arteta as an option there. Right back is a potential area that we could upgrade in, but I wonder if Arsenal will feel that they've got enough coming through and enough sort of cover in Cedric Suarez to hold off on that one a little bit longer. That's my view. So those are the positions that I'll go with. I mean, so for me, I've gone with a striker, a centre midfielder, and a winger. Mike, talk to us about your first selection. Tell us what position they play in, why they're the guy you've gone for, and a little bit about the player.
So my striker, I think that, so firstly, I think it comes from a point of view, Harry, where we really struggled, I think, in January to nail down our number one. And it didn't really seem for a long time before approaching the January window like we had a number one priority until we were really chasing Dusan Vlahovic. I mean, there were so many names bandied about, but none of them really struck me. I mean, the one I sort of wanted in January was Alexander Isak. I thought he sort of fit the profile of striker, but he's not really ended up kicking on this season. And that's not to say that I'm not sure about him and he won't be a great player. But I think I think Sociedad wanted like upwards of 60, 70 million for him to play.
It was £75 million was his release clause.
Yeah, 75 million on a player that's still young and unproven, I think is a lot. It's a lot of money to ask. At least Vlahovic, he'd had an outstanding season in Serie A, so he had that in the bag at least. But Isak has not sort of produced those numbers at all. So I think my sort of selection, looking at some of the names that have been linked to us, Dominic Calvert-Lewin, I'm not sure. Like, his injury record this season is a bit worrying. Ollie Watkins, I'm not really convinced about, to be honest. I'm not sure he can make that step up from Villa. Who are the other ones? Jonathan David, I like. I think he's a good player, but he's another one who's unproven. So I went for someone who has Premier League experience, and that is Gabriel Jesus, because I feel like he's been in the Premier League for a while now. He in previous seasons has played a lot under Pep Guardiola. I know his game time really has diminished over recent seasons because Guardiola's changed his system. He's not really playing with a number 9. Even when Aguero was there, he didn't really play with a number 9. So there's been a tactical shift, which means that Jesus has just featured a lot less. But in previous seasons, you've been able to see his class. And what shocked me, Harry, is that he's 24. I forgot that he was so young still. I thought he was about 26, 27 and sort of entering his peak, but he really is still young. And I think still a class player. I just think he's in that Man City team. He just doesn't fit it at the moment. And obviously, Pep Guardiola used him on the right-hand side on the right wing earlier this season, showing that he is versatile. But of course, the number one thing is a Premier League proven. But not only that, but Arteta will know him because he would have coached him a few years ago. So you've got a player right there who's ready. We know he's a top player. He might not have the ceiling that the likes of Vlahovic and Isak will have, but with that, you're trading in a lot of good things and a lot of positives. And Arteta will know exactly how to get the best out of him. He'll know exactly what his strengths are, and he'll know that he can cope in the Premier League. So just judging on transfer market value, so they've got him down as 45 million, which I feel like is a bit high for a player that's not really featured lows in recent seasons. So I think there could definitely be a deal to be done there.
Yeah, and obviously Mikel Arteta, as you say, has a strong relationship with Manchester City. And if they were going to sell him, if they did feel that, he wasn't the answer, that they're looking at Erling Haaland, as we're being told sort of day after day, then maybe Mikel Arteta could use that connection and that relationship that he has with Pep Guardiola and the club to try and get us into pole position for a signing like that. I think just to add some kind of statistics to the things that you've been saying, and they back up your point. We're talking about a guy at 24 years old who's got 54 caps for Brazil, 18 goals for the national team as well. His Manchester City record, it reads pretty well too. 224 appearances for the club, 88 goals. So he's not quite a 1-in-2 man, but he's not a million miles off of that. But also what's really interesting for me, perhaps more so than the goal scoring record, is that he's got 44 assists. And we talk so much, don't we, Mike, about link-up play, about the role that our striker needs to play, and the way it differentiates from some of the other roles that strikers are being asked to play across the Premier League. He feels like someone who is very involved in the build-up, and he feels like someone who, in that sense, suits us. My reservation about Gabriel Jesus, and feel free to shoot me down on this because you can do that. You're going to shoot my selections down as well. I just worry that sometimes we ask our centre forward to back into defenders, hold the ball up a little bit, or put themselves in a position where they know they're going to get crunched, and they know they're going to kind of almost like putting a pile of shit in the middle of a field and attracting all the flies to it. Like, that's what our striker does a lot of the time, and has to be sort of robust in the sense of they then have to ping the ball off somewhere knowing they're going to get caught, but it's creating space for others. Do you think that physically Gabriel Jesus would be robust enough to do that role?
Well, I think on the on the face of it, he's not the most sort of physical striker. I think he is someone who likes playing on the shoulder, and is really, really intelligent in terms of his positioning. And I think that's one of his big benefits. But also as well, like, I think because he's been playing in the Premier League a long time, you can be like clever as a striker. If you're not the biggest, if you're not the strongest, you can be intelligent. Like, would you say that Roberto Firmino is the strongest? Probably not, but he's got that sort of, he's got that sort of agility. He's got the speed, and he's got that sort of nous where you could, if you don't have to like barge a defender off the ball, you can sort of roll them. And I think he's in that sort of school of thought. I'm not saying he's exactly like Firmino. I think Firmino is probably a little bit more physical than he is, but you see what I mean? He's the same sort of type of player.
Yeah, I get what you mean. You can, if you've got a sharp mind and you see pictures before everybody else, you can gain the advantages that way. For me, when I think about what I want from a striker, if I was to put together like a tick list of what I want from a centre forward this season, I want someone who can hold the ball up. I want someone who's got the football intelligence to link up effectively. I want somebody who's got the pace to be a threat in behind. I think that Jesus has that, by the way. I don't think that he's a slouch or anything like that. But I also want someone that when we do come up against this low block and we're forced to work in the wide areas, I want us to be able to, at times, not all the time, but at times, look up and put the ball in the box early and have somebody who, even if they're not getting on the end of it themselves, is giving the centre halves something to worry about, something to, backing into people, using it. I don't know. I've never really been like this guy who's like obsessed with physicality. I've always been the opposite. I've always thought that technical quality is above everything and is what you should be looking for. And I still believe that. Of late, I've looked at some of the really big sides, like in terms of quality, and the team that comes to mind is Liverpool when they came to Emirates a few weeks ago. And I remember standing there on the North Bank and looking at their backline and thinking, it don't matter how smart you are, how quick you are, how clever you are. You go up in a battle with Joel Matip, Virgil van Dijk, and Fabinho sitting sort of at the foot of that diamond. You've got very little chance of getting much change out of them. And I don't know, it seems to have hit me in the last few weeks that we need that element to our side as well. And in years gone by, we haven't had that. Wenger started off by bringing all of that with the Patrick Vieiras, and we were bullies, and it was great. And then we veered away from that and we went to the more technical model. That didn't really work either. And I feel like now we're in a place where we need a bit of both. And I feel like a centre forward is one of those areas where you do need that bit of kind of force and power as opposed to just technicality.
But don't like I'll just draw the comparison. And you were talking about Liverpool, Man City there. Liverpool, Man City, two best two teams in the Premier League, probably the best two teams in the world. They don't play number nines. Obviously, Guardiola has just completely forsaken number 9 this season. He's played Sterling there, he's played Phil Foden there. Their whole thing is about the wide areas and overloads. And I think it's exactly the same with Liverpool. Firmino is a sort of product of the system, and he's very much system player. He does the dirty work, he does the pressing, he does the link up play. You rarely find him in the box. Their biggest threat, and I'd say one of Man City's is the wingers, Salah and Mane, and whoever it is playing for Man City, Mahrez, and then De Bruyne coming from deep, and on the left Raheem Sterling. Those are their most dangerous players. So if you're sort of following that school of thought, if we get wingers that can become potent, I think we can sort of follow that and then put a centre forward in who's not necessarily the most physical, he's not going to get you 25 goals a season, but he's going to pitch in, he's going to make the other players around him better, and he's technically proficient. And I think Gabriel Jesus fits that, because from a pace point, I think he's got plenty of pace to play in that team, do the pressing, do the hard work. I think he's got that. He's got the technical proficiency, otherwise he wouldn't be playing for Pep Guardiola, and he's got
Agreed.
the dribbling ability. I think he can create chances for himself, which is one of the biggest traits. And what I love from a striker so much is the ability to just get the ball out your feet, maybe beat a player, shift it, and then score. And we've seen that, with the Premier League's best strikers in recent years, Luis Suarez, Sergio Aguero, those strikers that make chances for themselves are the best. And I'm not saying Jesus is up there, but I think with the right coaching in the right system, I think he could work for us.
Yeah, good points. Good points. I completely agree about the whole, a number 9 is not the fashion at the moment. It's not the thing that we're seeing the 2 best teams in England sort of thrive with. We're seeing, as you say, Firmino drop that bit deeper, do different things, different roles. Liverpool have, changed it up at times when Jota's played through the middle. And of course, with Manchester City, we know that they've got that fluidity within their front line. I look at Man City, though, and I look at the wingers, and I look at the Mahrezes and the options that they have, the Sterlings, the Grealishes, the De Bruynes, all these different options they have, and they just contribute so much more in terms of outputs than anything that we've got. And that's why I feel like that can work. And the same at Liverpool. Mo Salah scores what a centre-forward would dream of scoring. And Sadio Mane contributes his fair share from the other side. And then you've got Luis Diaz now, and you've got, of course, Diogo Jota as well. So I think that will only work for us in the longer term if the Sakas and the Smith Rowes and the Odegaards can, and they're already doing brilliantly, but if they can then take their games up to the next level. And I feel that's the luxury Liverpool and City have, which allows them to then be a little bit less fussy.
But they are, to be fair, Harry, like if you look at it, they are right wing and left winger are top scorers this season. So I think we're going in that direction. You're right. We're not there yet, but I feel like there's a definite ploy to make those wingers our most potent players. And I think if we're going to follow that and lead on with that, we need to build the system rather than go for a striker that fits what we are right now, but maybe won't work as efficiently in the future. So I think there's got to be some sort of trade-off.
Yeah. No, it's a good point and a really good discussion.
Yeah,
for sure. Just a quick reminder before we continue through the show. First of all, make sure you head over to our good friends at Football Prizes. As we've been telling you guys throughout the week, there is a fantastic prize up for grabs this week. A Freddie Ljungberg signed and custom framed Arsenal shirt, plus 13 instant win prizes. You can buy tickets for £3.95. There's 199 tickets in the draw, and the competition ends this Thursday at 7:30 p.m. Some of the extra prizes include an Aubameyang signed and framed shirt, a Pires signed and framed montage, some vouchers for the website, and some vouchers for the Arsenal Club shop. But I must tell you that of the 199 tickets available, there are only a handful left. 167 of them have been sold. So I don't think this competition is even going to run as far as Thursday. So if this is something that you're interested in, get involved straight away, because you don't want to miss your opportunity. A Freddie Ljungberg signed and custom framed Arsenal shirt, plus 13 instant win prizes. Right, we're going to move on to our next position in just a moment. Welcome back to the Chronicles of a Gooner, part 2. So Mike's first choice is Gabriel Jesus. I feel like this pod might go on a little bit longer than we thought, just because we're half an hour in and we've only done one player. But it's all good. So let me give you my striking option. And I'm not going to really go into it an awful lot, because I've talked about this guy on this podcast quite a bit in recent weeks. I've made it clear that he, for me, is up there among the more suitable options. I also think that I kind of ran off what I'm looking for in a striker in that section we just did. So don't want to get too caught up in it. But my option is Darwin Nunez. And his transfer market value is £36 million. Now, I appreciate, as I said right at the top of the show, that we're going to probably need to pay more to get this guy in the door. But we are basing it on their transfer market values, and we set ourselves a limit of £120 million if you're just joining us, so that we don't go crazy and completely unrealistic. But I just think the Uruguayan has shown incredible promise at Benfica since joining the club. He's got 40 goals in 77 games for the club, 14 assists there as well. But having covered him quite closely in a number of recent games, in particular the game away at Ajax in the Champions League, I just saw a lot from Darwin Nunez that really kind of interested me. His ability to run channels and stretch teams, his ability to hold the ball up, his physical presence. I think all of those things are really important. We can all watch highlight reels of Darwin Nunez sort of running in on goal and putting the ball in the back of the net. His goal record speaks for itself. But for me, what was really impressive was what he gave to the team on a night where they had very little of the ball, and then the aerial threat that he gave them from set pieces. And ultimately, that's what saw Benfica squeeze through the tie. So, he's the one for me. Again, he fits into that kind of whole, let's buy players, not too young to have an impact, but at that sweet spot, 22 years old, plenty of room to develop. And coming from Benfica, I think he's somebody that's quite attainable. And I think he's somebody who, although isn't playing in one of the strongest leagues in the world, comes from a club where there is immense pressure to perform and deliver every single week. And I think in a way that conditions you to playing for a club like Arsenal, where the scrutiny is there, where the microscope is shone on your every performance. I think that's helped Mike, for example, Kieran Tierney, because Celtic don't play in the strongest league in the world. We all know that, but he came from a club where the expectation level was up here. And that is what it's like playing for Arsenal. So that kind of whole mental aspect of it, it does help if you've been in that environment, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's that sort of pressure, the expectation, the fan base. I mean, the Benfica fan base is absolutely massive. Just like the Celtic fan base is humongous. Like you go out and you meet Celtic fans, and they're some of the most passionate fans on earth. They live and breathe football, and that rivalry between them and Rangers. If you played in an old firm derby, you know what football's all about, and you understand the culture and how much it means to them fans. So I know what you mean in terms of that. I do like Darwin Nunez. I think he's a very promising player, and I like a lot of the qualities. I just think we're going to have to pay so much money to get him, Harry, because he's probably going to be wanted by a lot of big teams, and it's extremely dependent on whether we get into the Champions League and what other teams need a striker. I think the problem is with the striker search is that I think there's so few around. There's so few strikers that you're going to buy at the age of 22 and 23 that are a guarantee. I mean, Dusan Vlahovic was probably the last one at that age, and you thought, okay, this guy's gonna fly wherever he goes. But you look at that sort of bracket, and there's not loads that you think, okay, this guy's the one. And when you're spending, upwards of 60, 70 million, you need to be sure. So yeah, I think that there'll be a lot of competition, and I wouldn't be surprised if they, it's almost double of what transfer market is saying at the moment.
Yeah, and acknowledge that. I know that the valuations that we're getting there are not necessarily going to be accurate or representative of what we need to pay, but it's kind of a way of us being able to do something like this without it getting stupid. If you are in the comments and you are with us live, or if you're watching us back later on, let us know in terms of a striker, of the options that we've come up with, Darwin Nunez or Gabriel Jesus, who would you prefer to see Arsenal sign? Stick to those two. Let's see what you think about those two. And then we'll narrow it down basically to how Arsenal should spend their money in our opinion. So let us know, Darwin Nunez or Gabriel Jesus. While you're doing that, Mike, your next one. Who else would you like to see come in this summer?
So I'm going to go with a right winger because as I mentioned earlier, I feel like that's a position we need to strengthen. I feel like Saka is so versatile; he could literally play in any of the other positions. Whether that's as a number 8, whether that's as a left winger, I feel like he's so versatile and so effective that if we did buy a right winger to come in, I feel like he'd easily slot in anywhere else. So I'm going to go for Anthony of Ajax. Whenever I've watched him in the Champions League, mostly he's just unbelievable. Like he's got an absolute wand of a left foot. He reminds me a bit of Hakim Ziyech, the way he dribbles, but he's got a lot more speed and his finishing ability is up there. So I think someone like him, he's 22 years old. He's performed at the highest level. Yes, as he's playing in the Eredivisie, but I've watched him in the Champions League against the best teams, and he's more than held his own. So I think there's no question that he wouldn't quite make it. And he's played for Brazil as well. I just think there's so many areas that he could help us in. And if we had that sort of direct, fast, tricky winger to play for us, I think it takes our game to another level.
Yeah, he's a player I really, really like. And I mentioned a little bit earlier on that I covered that Benfica Ajax game, and Anthony was the player on Ajax's side that really stood out. If they were going to score, and obviously they didn't on the night, it was going to come from him. He was a live wire down that right-hand side, always looking to cut inside onto that left foot of his, always looking to deliver the ball into dangerous areas early. I thought he was brilliant. And he's a player that I would really like as well. And again, we're talking about their transfer market values. You're talking about 31.5 million, is it? For Anthony on here. I don't think that is too inaccurate in the sense of what you would need to pay. Ajax are a club whose business model is either develop players or pluck out gems at a young age, develop them, put them through the Ajax school of football, get them up to speed, cash in on them. That's what Ajax do. That's what Ajax have done for many, many years. But there's not really many better clubs in the business at doing that.
Yeah.
And at sort of creating these sort of superstars from either nothing or from a kind of a rough diamond, if you like. So I think Anthony is someone that you could certainly get for around about that price. I wouldn't be surprised if that was a fairly accurate figure. How much of an upgrade is he on Nicolas Pepe in your mind?
For me, because I think he has done it at that level in the Champions League. I think he's a big upgrade, and I think what he gives you is just more directness. I think Pepe sometimes what he struggles with is actually going to take players on and using the best of his abilities, whether that's a confidence thing, whether that's something else, whether that's a tactical issue. I'm not sure, but I think it's the Brazilian theme. It's the flair. It's the wanting to embarrass defenders and wanting to skill them up. It's just a thing that comes naturally to them, and that's why I think that he'd be a better fit for us than Pepe. And I've made my thoughts clear on Pepe. I think he's not quite suited to our football, and he's not quite suited to the Premier League. He's just not quite at that speed. So I think someone with electric, pace and directness like Anthony would be a much better fit.
So sticking on the theme of wingers, my winger is another Brazilian. It's going to cost us a bit more money, quite a bit more money, I think. But I'm going to go with Raphinha of Leeds. Before I go into why, what do you think of Raphinha? Is he somebody that should be on our radar? Have you been impressed with him since he came to the Premier League?
Yeah, absolutely. He's I can't believe that he's at Leeds. I just think when I watch him, he's just a level above the rest of his teammates, like quite by some way. And he's the best thing about him is his technique. I think like he's got the speed and he's got the trickery, but he's got the end product. Like this guy can take free kicks. He's good on set pieces, and he can find the back of the net, which is ultimately the most important thing. If you're looking at someone who wants to be, a winger but more of an inside forward, like we're talking about Man City and Liverpool, I think he's definitely that sort of guy. He's shown that he can score goals. He's shown that he's good in the Premier League. Again, Harry, like with Nunez, Raphinha's been linked with Barcelona, linked with Liverpool, linked with even Manchester United. I'm not sure we'd be in the conversation for him, but I'd absolutely love to have him. Yeah.
Interesting as well, because Raphinha, if my memory serves me correctly, is somebody that we were linked with prior to him joining Leeds.
Yeah.
Somebody that
right.
There were reports, weren't there, doing the rounds that we had an interest in him when he was playing in France. And I must admit, when I saw him come to the Premier League, I was a little bit like, well, more than anything else, I'm curious to see how this guy's going to get on. But he's proven that he can cope. He's proven that he can deal with the pace of the game. He's proven that he can deal with the speed of the game. He's proven that he doesn't get put off by the fact that he gets chopped sort of every 5 yards. He continues to pick himself up, dust himself off. And he's got that tenacity that I really like, along with a bag full of technical ability. He's a player I really like. And we talk quite a bit, don't we, about how Arsenal this summer, or last summer, I beg your pardon, were quite shrewd in the transfer market, and in a lot of instances brought players in who had experience of the Premier League already. The Ben Whites, the Ramsdales, Tommy Asu didn't, obviously, but people like Martin Odegaard had been at the club for a little while and understood what it took to succeed in the Premier League. So I think on that basis, I think that, yeah, you might pay a little bit over the odds for Raphinha, who, according to Transfermarkt, is worth £40 million, which is why I've put him on my list. But we know that it will be more than that if you're going to get him away from Leeds, particularly if they stay up. I just think that Premier League proven thing, while it's not the be all and end all for me, if the increase in the price, if the premium that you pay for that isn't too ridiculous, then I think it's a premium worth paying. It just depends on how much. Like, you get some players like Harry Maguire, right? Harry Maguire, when he went to Manchester United for £80 million, they paid that because they were signing him from another Premier League club. For me, the premium on that, i.e. the difference between what he's actually worth and what they had to pay, was too high to make that a worthwhile deal. But if you're talking about an extra 5, 7, 8 million pounds in comparison to what you might pay for someone on the continent, then I think it's probably worth it. What's your take on that whole Premier League proven, Premier League premium thing?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny you mentioned Maguire because he got booed by some of the England fans the other day, didn't he? So I have to just admit on that quickly, I thought that was disgraceful. I mean, how you can boo your own player when, you know, for England, he's been good. He was in the Euro team of the tournament and he was in the team when England got to the World Cup semi. So I think on Maguire, it's a bit harsh to boo him, because why would you base that on the club performances when you're watching your country play? So not quite sure, but you're completely right about the Premier League tax. I think you pay completely over the odds. I think if it was if you get Maguire from another club, I don't think you would have paid more than 35 million, 40 million maybe, which is like more than double what they paid for him. But I would say if we're talking about our selections here, Anthony and Raphinha, if you got Anthony for 30, just say, and you know, for Raphinha, Leeds were asking for 50 million. I think probably it will be worth the extra outlay to get someone who has shown that they can do it in the Premier League. But again, as I mentioned, it's just how many teams will be competing for him. I saw Fabrizio Romano putting out the other day that if Leeds do go down, Raphinha might be available for 25 million or something. So that would be an absolute steal. But if that happens, you know, it will be a free for all in terms of who's gonna try and get him, because it will be a bargain.
Yeah, for sure. You're likely to get clubs then coming in and saying, "Well, here's a £10 million signing on fee, because we've saved whatever we thought we were going to spend." That will persuade you to come here rather than everywhere else. But I do think that although Arsenal haven't been where we'd like to be in recent years, we are still in a stronger position than a lot of clubs when it comes to recruiting. Just because the public opinion of the team right now and where we're going and Mikel Arteta is really positive, but also the London life. You know, there's so many things that we have in our advantage and in our corner when going into these negotiations that I still feel like there's only a handful of clubs that, if we really want someone, could still gazump us. So I do feel quite optimistic and positive about that. So Anthony's your pick. My pick was Raphinha. Interested to hear what you guys think in the comments as well. We're going to move on to one final player each. But just a quick reminder, if you haven't done so already, make sure you hit the like button on the video. Join the 60 people who have already liked the video. There's way over a couple of hundred of you with us live at this very moment. So to only have 60 likes on the board, well, it's not acceptable. Not good enough. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you're new, as we continue to push towards 20,000 here on YouTube. And if you're listening via the audio, leave us a review. Okay, Mike, let's get your third and final pick for our hypothetical Arsenal transfer shopping list for the summer. Who have you got?
So if we're talking hypothetical, you know, dream, It's really funny because I was having a chat with a few mates the other day, and I was saying just after watching Xhaka in this new number 8 role, yeah, I was just saying, imagine we had prime Santi Cazorla playing there. I think that would be the absolute
stuff that dreams are made
ultimate.
of.
Like he is literally tailor made for that role. Him, like the likes of David Silva, that sort of little technician in there. I mean, Cazorla was just an absolute one of a kind because he could use both feet and he's sort of technical ability, but he's shooting, he's passing, I mean, everything was just unreal about the guy. You couldn't tackle him, even though he was tiny. He would just spin away from you, and he had a good core strength as well. So that I think he's the sort of guy, but unfortunately, that's not going to happen. And looking at the sort of market, there's no one like him. There's absolutely no one like him. So trying to sign someone like that would be impossible.
Just before you go on to give us your final pick, I was thinking about that role that you're talking about, that sort of slightly left of center, kind of more of a box to box midfielder role, isn't it? Than what we saw, than the double pivot in midfield, or the job that Xhaka and Partey were doing previously. And I was having this thought the other day when we were talking about players that will potentially be leaving the club in the summer permanently. Do you think that Lucas Torreira would have played that role quite well, given that I think as a DM in the Premier League, he just lacked that size and presence? Do you think that his tenacity would have served us quite well in the role that Xhaka is now playing?
I think if you asked Unai Emery, he would say yes, because he played him as like a number 10, didn't he? He liked him further up the pitch.
Crazy.
I don't know. I don't know. I think Torreira was sort of good at like those. This is going to sound really complimentary, but he was good at like those Xavi passes, like the sort of 5-10 yard passes. But when it got to the sort of edge of the box, I never really thought he was incisive enough to sort of slip that ball through to the number 9 or the winger. So I'm not sure, Harry. I'm not going to lie. What do you think he would be?
I don't think that he would be the answer or the long-term solution, but I think it would have suited him more than the role that we asked him to play. I think that it would have suited him more than being the lone defensive midfielder in the Premier League, where in a team that was really exposed as well. Let's not forget, like, for all Unai Emery's positives, and there were some, even though I don't really like to talk about him, there were some, but one of the problems that he had, I felt, Unai Emery, was that he was so reliant on both the fullbacks getting forward all the time that it really left us unstable in a defensive standpoint and on the transition. And I felt like whoever played in that DM role at that time alone, whether it was Xhaka, whether it was Torreira, it could have been Claude bloody Makelele. They would have struggled because they were being asked to cover way too much ground, way too much distance. And Torreira was hung out to dry in that sense. Just like Mikel Arteta was under Arsene Wenger to a degree, when it was all free-flowing, going forward, the wingers getting up and down the pitch, and then Mikel Arteta himself being exposed. And I think that experience has served Mikel Arteta well. I think he looks at the struggles that he had in that role in that Arsenal team and knows exactly what is required to not expose that one player who's being charged with sitting at the foot of the midfield. So, I think that role, the number 8 role, if you like, would have suited Torreira a little bit more than the way we actually utilized him. But I agree with you. Lucas Torreira in the final third, with the exception of that goal he scored against Tottenham, I can't think of a single moment in which he really kind of did something, great or something kind of eye-catching. So I agree with you on that. Yeah. But we've digressed. So who is your next player that?
So I'll just say that obviously we're doing this all within a budget, and if I could have a dream player, it'll probably be Frankie De Jong of Barcelona, but on Transfermarkt he was coming up at about 60+ million, so it doesn't quite fit in. So I'm going to go for someone a lot younger, someone who I think has got huge potential. That's Ryan Gravenberch from Ajax. So 2 Ajax players, Harry. And he is 19. He's played in the Champions League. He's got a few caps for the Netherlands as well. Or maybe not, maybe the under 21s. But he's a very, very promising player.
No, he
And
has.
for me,
He has, Mike.
he has.
I think he's got
Oh,
about
he has.
10.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, there you go. There you go. Yeah. So yeah, at the age of 19, he's playing in the Champions League. He's playing a lot of games for Ajax as well. He's played 26 times in the Eredivisie this season. Played 8 times in the Champions League. So he's not sort of a bit part player. He's a very important part of that Ajax team under Erik ten Hag. So at that age to be having that experience is huge. And whenever I've watched him, I just think he's so silky. Like he's big. Like he's not a small player. He's over 6 foot. He's like 6'1", 6'2". But he's that sort of player. Whenever he gets the ball, he will dribble around 3 players, and you're thinking, what? Like this guy is so rare to get someone who's got that physicality, but also that technical aspect as well. And if he's showing them traits at 19, like Lord knows what he's going to be on to do in a few years, and under the right coaching. I get that he's going to have huge interest, and right now, would he walk straight into the Arsenal team? I'm not sure, but the way I see it is, it's going to be difficult to upgrade on Xhaka this summer, because if we're going for a striker, I think we're going to put a lot of our time and effort and funds into that, and to then ask them to get a midfielder that's a clear upgrade on Xhaka is difficult. So as I said earlier, what I think you do is you need to go someone who's a bit younger, who's got that that huge potential, and then get them to learn under the likes of Xhaka and Partey, and play I don't know 15, 20 games a season, and slowly get there. It's unrealistic, of course it is, but I think he'd fit that number 8 position for sure.
Yeah, and I think what's really, really interesting is that we've just been talking about that role and the requirements of that role. And as much as we want that player to be able to contribute sort of in the final third, they also have to have the ability of tucking in alongside Thomas Partey and turning it into a double defensive midfield pivot when we come up against certain opponents. Like, you can't be as gung-ho as we have been in certain games with that additional midfielder against the likes of Liverpool, against the likes of Man City. I think at times we've had to tuck that player back in, and that's why Granit Xhaka has been all right doing it, because it's quite natural to him to drop that little bit deeper and sit alongside Thomas Partey. Maybe a little bit less natural when he gets into that final third, but Ryan Gravenberch feels like somebody that could do a bit of both. And I think that's key. I think you make a really good point. That's a really interesting shout. My one for this position, and I've gone a little bit safer, and I've gone with a player that we've been linked with quite a bit over the last sort of 18 months, is Ruben Neves of Wolves, because I think he fits into that bracket of somebody who defensively can be very effective, can be very sort of tactically aware. His positioning is very good. Is not afraid to make a challenge here or there, but he's also technically brilliant, can play passes from deep, but can also get into the final third and shoot from distance and all of those things. And again, somebody that I think wouldn't have any trouble settling in because of his experience of the Premier League. And I think he's another one where people go, well, he's been in that Wolves team forever, so he must be quite old. Well, actually, he's only 25. And I think that's the perfect age. I think it's all good having this approach of bringing in 21, 22-year-olds to build a core for the future. But you need to complement that with players with a little bit more experience. And Ruben Neves is at that level where he's still hungry, still looking to progress in his career, still looking to push forward, but has enough nous behind him, I think, to fit into that role quite well. So he's the one I've gone for. And according to Transfermarkt, he's available at he's valued at around about 36 million. Although
I've just got one thing, Harry, with Neves. I'm just not sure he's mobile enough to play that number 8 role, because I think that's what we're talking about. We're looking at someone who's playing that number 8 role, and when I look at him, he's not the fastest and he's not the best dribbler. So I absolutely understand as a number 6, he'd be brilliant alongside Partey. I think those two form a great partnership because he's got the technical aspects. He's absolutely got that. Like, he's passing, he's long range shooting, he's free kicks, set pieces, everything is class. It's just the one thing that makes me think, because the problem I have with Xhaka is that he's just not mobile enough in those areas where you need to have tight control. You need to be good on the ball, and you need to be able to pick up passes. That's my one thing, and that's why I've been moaned about having Xhaka there. Do you think Neves right sort of, profile mobility wise for that sort of thing.
I don't think he's ideal in that sense. I think there are other players that I don't know if that it's mobility with Neves. I think the way I would describe it is, does he have enough? Is he sharp enough in certain moments? Like again with Xhaka, I often use that term mobility in terms of the distances he covers and the ground he gets across. He does all of that. That's not the problem. It's that sometimes it's not sharp enough. He's not nimble enough, I think is the way I would put it. And I see what you're saying with Neves as well. But I just think Neves' tactical awareness and ability to defend without being a leg breaker by going around and putting himself in the right areas, I think is invaluable. And I also think he's so technically secure that you give him the ball in a pressured situation, and I don't worry that he will make the wrong decision, hesitate. And I think that a lot of the time when you're talking about a number 8, you're asking for someone that can do it all, that can go forward, but that can also be defensively strong. And I don't think there are many players in the world that fall into that category.
No,
so if you've got someone who, when they do get forward, can at the very least keep the move going, keep the move flowing, and be technically secure enough that it doesn't break down at his feet, but can also pull out an absolute banger from the edge of the box. I think he goes a long way in filling that box for me. Although I appreciate that he's not perfect, but who is perfect?
That's the thing.
The moment is attainable that can do all of those things to the very highest level. I don't think there's anyone.
Yeah, because people saying I'm seeing Fabian Ruiz, Milinkovic, Savic.
Again, Fabian
They're
Ruiz.
all the same, aren't they?
Yeah.
They're all the same.
Everything that people moan about Granit Xhaka about, they would have the same problem with Fabian Ruiz. I've said this on a show before. I watch a lot of him. I watch a lot of Serie A. Brilliant with the ball at his feet. The league suits him down to a T. But you take him out of that and you put him into the Premier League environment, I guarantee you the same criticisms that people have of Granit Xhaka will be coming out of their mouths, only with Fabian Ruiz's name at the front of them.
Yeah, no, it's true. I mean, someone said Marco Verratti. I mean, that's
how
who we
many
all
Marco
want.
Verrattis are there? Exactly.
That's who we all want, and he's probably Cazorla without the shooting and better defensively. He's that sort of low center of gravity, unbelievable passing range, great tackler. That's who we want, but we're not going to get. I think him and Frankie De Jong would be dream signings, but unfortunately, they're just nowhere near. We're nowhere near that level to be able to attract those players. So yeah, it's a difficult one, and you're right, because when I look at a number 8, I'm looking at, you're looking at the best teams to play a 4-3-3 and be the most successful, and straight away in my mind, what pops up is Andres Iniesta and Xavi and David Silva and Kevin De Bruyne. These are the top class players. So if you're looking to profile similar, I don't think the likes of Milinkovic, Savic, and Fabian Ruiz fit that. And if you're moaning about Xhaka's lack of pace, why would you then go and get Fabian Ruiz, who struggles with that sort of thing? Why wouldn't you?
He's probably even worse in that sense. He's probably worse in that sense.
I don't get it. I think what a lot of this is, Harry, is a lot of clamoring for new, and new is sometimes seen as better, but in reality, it's not. So this is why I'm saying, if we can't get a direct upgrade on Xhaka, we need to just get someone in that's younger and has the potential. So that's why I went for Gravenberch.
Yeah, and it's a good shout. It really, really is. Guys, we are going to leave it there. We've been going for the best part of an hour. Really good discussion, good chat as always. So, Mike, just once again, just remind us of who your 3 players are that have gone on your hypothetical Arsenal shopping list for the summer.
Yes, I went for Gabriel Jesus. I went for Anthony from Ajax and Ryan Gravenberch from Ajax. I think the total transfer market spend was about 108 million. So we gave ourselves 120. So I'm filling up a lot of that. But yeah, I mean, if we got those, I'd be absolutely delighted.
Where's that other 12 million going?
I don't know. Spent on upgrading the food at the Emirates, maybe.
Yeah, subsidizing it, so it's not £20.
That could do with a huge upgrade.
Yeah,
so put it into there.
Get some souvlaki in there or something, man.
Yeah, come on. There's loads of Greeks in North London. I'm sure no one would complain.
I agreed, completely agree. My three were Darwin Nunez, Ruben Neves, and Raphinha. My total spend was £112 million. So only around about £8 million of that hypothetically allocated budget available to subsidize the food costs and improve the catering at Emirates Stadium. But I think that would be enough, probably. Okay, we are going to leave it there. Mike, thank you so much, as always, for joining me, mate. Always great chatting with you. Let people know how they can find you on social media and where they can keep up to date with your great work.
Yeah, so best place is just next to my face right there. Mike_Stavrou on Twitter. Tweet musings about Arsenal, stuff I find interesting, and the odd transfer rumor I delve into. So yeah, go and follow me on there.
Make sure you do. Make sure you are subscribed to the Chronicles of a Gooner YouTube channel if you're watching us on video. If you're listening via audio, don't forget to leave us a review, particularly on Apple Podcasts. As I've said before, we're nowhere near where we should be in terms of the number of reviews that we have in comparison to the number of listens. So please, guys, do help us in that sense. As I said, hit the like button on the video. I don't know, I'm going to say it again. Hit the like button on the video. Check out Football Prizes. And we'll be back very, very soon with more Arsenal-related content. We've got a video dropping later on today focusing on Cody Gakpo of PSV Eindhoven, a player that Arsenal have been heavily linked with in recent days. So come and join us for that a little bit later on. We'll catch you all soon. Until next time, goodbye.
I'm Martin Tyler, and you're listening to Harry Symeou.